Hi, I'm Greg Yulin with Reynolds & Reynolds, and this is Connected. Today I get to talk with Catherine Hart. Catherine is the Senior Vice President of Sales for Payment Automation at Corpay. Really excited about this conversation. We're going to get into the business office and automating some processes in there. So Catherine, thanks so much for joining me.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So Catherine, we haven't met before until about 10 minutes ago, where we did some pleasantries, making sure that we knew each other a little bit before recording. But talk about yourself a little bit and kind of your history in the industry and your relationship with automotive and car dealers.
Sure. So me personally, I've been in the payments industry for longer than I would like to tell you because it will age me, and so I can't share. But for a very long time, all of my career, I've been in payments. Most recently, specializing in the automotive industry. So really, no matter where I've been in my trajectory of career, it's been about helping businesses make business payments. Because they can be risky and inefficient. And so that is really what I have a passion to do. Specifically in automotive, we've been in the automotive industry for the last 15 years. And so quite a lot has changed, yet quite a lot has not changed. So that's just where my passion lies, is talking about payments. It's kind of dorky, but it's what I love. And I know that there is a lot of challenges in payments that we hope to solve for businesses.
Yeah, and there's a lot of nuance there, right? So it's straightforward, but there's also a lot of nuance and a lot of details that really matter and that make a big difference when you scale it. So I want to get into that, want to dig into it. You obviously have a lot of experience there, but I did want to touch on before we dive in. So you have a great looking virtual background behind you. The Corpay logo's there. It looks great. But when we were doing introductions, I also noticed in the real world behind you, you have a Patrick Mahomes jersey.
I did. Should I turn it off? Do you want to just see the Mahomes jersey instead?
That's completely up to you. Completely up to you. But obviously, Patrick Mahomes went to Texas Tech. I assume that's where the fandom comes from.
Kind of. So I did attend Texas Tech, but my family is from Kansas City. And so I have been a Kansas City Chiefs fan ever since I was a little girl, where they were no good for 40-ish years, right? And so what's neat is obviously Mahomes coming from Texas Tech and having a connection there, but it goes back further than that, with just my family, my husband's family, all being from Kansas City. So just being big fans.
Got it. Yeah. I'll tell you, it's been a good couple of years in a few different sports for Texas Tech, though. I mean, the college football playoff this year. Right. I love college softball. My daughter plays softball, and I love to watch college softball. And Najai, I can't say her name. I knew Najai Kennedy. My goodness, I didn't think it was going to be that difficult. She is a stud. She's so fun to watch on the mound too. Most
definitely, yeah.
All right, so let's dig into it with payments. You said you're really passionate about it. You want to talk about it. So let's start with this idea. So we've been talking about it a lot at Reynolds, and we're really passionate about the idea of the business office in and of itself, kind of making a transition, making a shift from a place in the dealership that is kind of a posting office, right, and managing transactions, to one that's really managing cash flow, right? And they're the cash flow management office rather than just kind of a posting office. Obviously, payments fits into this really nicely. So maybe we can start there, and you can give your perspective on the dealership business office when it comes to specifically to payments, and what some of those processes look like today that are maybe too manual and too people intense that we can automate or streamline or make go a lot smoother.
Sure. I mean, what we see most often, and not every dealership is like this, but what we see most often is decentralization. And I think, unfortunately, that's just the nature of the automotive industry, because I see how often we are buying and selling locations all the time. And so not a single dealer operates with centralization throughout their entire tenure of owning that dealership. And so whether it's now or whether it's in the future, there is at some point decentralization a big part of that. And in my experience, decentralization is what causes inefficiencies. And so, yes, it's a business office, and yes, it's posting and making payments and doing all the very important things that we have to do to run a business, but it is so inefficient, and we might be running approvals from a literal check stack from one location to another, or chasing down whoever I need to do on foot to really get what I needed to get to make that business office most efficient. And so That's the biggest pain that we hear, or the biggest pain that we see, is just, we all have the same amount of time in the day. How do we become more efficient with our time?
Yeah, and when you think about, the payments process too, yeah, you have that stack of checks, but then you also have the stack of invoices that you're trying to match to make sure that the amount on the invoice matches the amount on the check, and then maybe you sign it, or the office manager signs it, but then you also have to go get the general manager or the dealer principal to sign it, because we need two people to sign the check, and there's just this
Absolutely.
massive process built around getting a check in the mail.
Right. Most definitely. And what do you do if somebody's on vacation and
Yeah.
I need a two-person signer, or they're traveling, right? Traveling from one location to another. And so making that manual and something that somebody physically needs to sign, it's so inefficient this day and age. And there's better ways.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And that's, obviously what you all do, and we're very invested in kind of automating that process as well. So when you think about, maybe we can go there right away. When you think about automating that process, or maybe not automating, but certainly digitizing that payments
Yep.
process,
Hmm.
what are some of the things that you see right away when a store goes from kind of that manual, okay, here's my invoice and here's my check, and that matches, now I'll sign it, and I'll go find somebody else to sign it, and then, I'll get Susie to put it in the mail, it'll go in the mail tomorrow, and then whenever it clears, and we'll reconcile after that. So that's, say today's process.
Yep.
What's the change? What's the light bulb moment when somebody moves to a digital process?
I mean, two light bulb moments that I see, and one is approvals. So workflow approvals. Today, that process is outlined, yet there's no kind of controls in place to be sure it is, except for humans. And so what we see often is breaks when that happens, or risk that could potentially delay things or even go wrong, internally. And so one of the biggest value points is streamlining that workflow approval. What do you need it to look like? Do I need two check signers? Is it a dollar amount? Is it because it came from this specific location at the dealer? Is it because it's parts versus labor, or what is that type of transaction that we're trying to get approval on, and making those digital? Because that's a big part of it, is chasing down those approvals that you need to have done. So can I make that part digitized and make it really easy on not only accounting, but also on my approvers that I need to go chase down? So that's one part.
Yep.
And then the second part that I would say is, to your point of putting that actual check in the mail. So one of the values of Corpay working with dealerships is we handle that whole part. And so not only just a check, but other types of payment modalities. Not every supplier wants a check. There might be different ways to pay a supplier that makes better sense for the business, for that dealership. And so let us kind of handle that, make sure we're optimizing the way that we're going to pay that supplier. And no matter what, we're going to send that supplier that payment. And so it's just off your plate. Nothing you got to worry
Yeah.
about.
So let's talk about those other methods of payment then, because there's a few, but some can be more valuable for both parties, frankly, for the person being paid and the person paying the bill, right?
Yeah.
So talk about a couple of those other methods, and then maybe we can get into some details there.
Sure. So most common method is a check payment. Easy,
Yep.
easy. It's what we've been doing for decades and decades, hundreds of years, is writing checks. And so checks are great. One thing that's really interesting on a check is it has your bank account number on it. And so not only is it slow at times, but it's also very risky, because you can whitewash a check. Your whole entire routing and your routing and bank account number is on the front of that check. And so it just really makes it easy for people who all they do all day is try to defraud payments, to whitewash that check. So that's one, is check payments, although they're still the most common. The second payment would be ACHs. So we love ACHs because it's fast delivery, right? It's very quick into your supplier's bank account. But there is great risk with ACH. In fact, it's one of the most common fraudulent payments. But it's not because we get the ACH wrong in transit. It's because of business email compromise. How many spam messages do you and I both get? All of us get. And frankly, if you're going too fast during your day, you can miss it and accidentally change that banking and routing information on an ACH, and oops, I sent it to the wrong supplier. So
Yeah.
ACH, although fast, very, very risky, very prone to fraud. And then that third method is virtual card. So I think most have probably heard of a virtual card or a credit card in some form or fashion. And there's some pros and cons to it, right? So pro is it's delivered very, very quickly. So it's a single use virtual card number for that amount of those invoices that the accounting department has pre-authorized to send to that supplier. And so it's secure and it's fast, and it also earns a rebate. And so there is rebate rev share that that dealership can get back by those suppliers that already take a virtual card today. So it's a great, great form of payment also.
Yeah. Okay, good. So a couple of things on that, and you landed that on virtual payments, which I think is well, and the rebates on those virtual payments. So I think that that's a great place to dig into, and something that if you're not doing it today, you can kind of question, okay, is it really that valuable, right? And so typically, I don't know if you can share this or not, I would assume so. Like, what's the typical percentage on a rebate? I mean, is it kind of like, what you might get on a personal credit card cash back? Like, what's the rebate?
Yeah, so it's very similar, and I think it depends on the supplier. So that's where
Sure.
the complexity of a rebate comes into play. It depends on who you're spending with and how much you're spending. But what we attempt to do is match those suppliers that you have to our database, and we can actually customize and know what that rebate would be back for that specific dealership. On average, it's about 100 basis points or a 1% return. It can be less than that, it can be more than that. It just really depends, but we can do a deep analysis so that each dealership knows what to expect from it. I think one of the neat things about it is likely you're not getting that today. So you're turning almost a zero into positive cash flow from your accounts payable department that might not be turning a profit today. So it's a great way just to be an additional revenue stream for the dealership.
Yeah, and depending on your scale, right? Depending on the size of the dealership or dealership group that you're running, 1% can add up really quickly over the course of a month.
It can, absolutely. And all of us have expenditures that we have to ask for budget for, right?
Sure.
And so
Yeah.
Great ways to offset places where you need to spend on software or on enhancements to the business where you might not have budget for it. You can get it from somewhere else to help fund that project.
No, that's a good point. One of the things that I think Corpay, you all do that adds a lot of value is kind of reaching out to companies, suppliers, vendors, however you want to frame it, to help them start to take virtual payments. I think about it from a personal perspective. There's still two bills that I have to pay with a check, right? From a personal perspective. And every month it's almost like this nuisance, right? I got to pay them early because I still do it electronically through my bank or whatever, but I got to remember, okay, I got to get this one done 10 days in advance because it's going to take that long for the bank to process the check and mail it and make sure it's there on time and whereas everything else is just, same day. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
So same kind of thing, but more impactful, same annoyance, but more impactful for a business when you think about cash flow and taking control of that cash flow rather than, just batch printing checks once or twice a month, stuffing them all in envelopes, mailing them out, and then waiting for them to clear whenever they clear.
Right.
Being able to pay them electronically precisely when they're due and just knowing when something's going to hit, taking control of that cash flow is a big deal.
It is.
So with that in mind, talk about the ability to and kind of the process to get a vendor, a supplier, a business to start taking virtual payments or virtual cards rather than, requiring a check.
Yeah, I mean, the great thing with us is we don't put that on the dealership. So if you were to do just a traditional card program with the bank, let's just say, we would put that onus on the dealership and typically the accounts payable department to understand which of their suppliers can they put on a card. And if there is other ones that they should try to put on virtual card, they need to have those conversations. And like I said before, I don't know about you, but I don't have enough time in the day to make that happen even within my role. And so what Corpay does is we take that on. And so not only do we have a very large supplier network, because we're not only in the automotive industry, we're in a lot of different industries as well, construction and education and manufacturing. But although we specialize in the automotive industry, it allows us to know what our dealers are already spending with which suppliers. And so if one dealership pays AutoZone with a virtual card, we know that all of the other dealerships, we can have them pay that same. And so you have this power of the network or power of a big membership group because we already know. The thing that I love about it too is we do call campaigns, and so we reach out to those suppliers that are on check or ACH today and ask them if they would like a different form of payment, and we explain the benefits of a virtual card. If they don't, it's okay. We can still send them a check or an ACH, but there's benefits to them for taking a virtual card. And what I love the most is if that supplier says yes, and we paid them with check a month before, now that supplier can be paid by virtual card, and we turn that on for all dealerships and all locations. And so you get this automatic enrollment that just compounds on itself, no matter how many years you've been with us or how little of tenure you've been with us. So it's a big group that we all kind of benefit from. Many dealerships being a part of this program.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And having that scale on that front can make a big difference. And I imagine, to your point, compounding over time, the list just grows and grows and grows. So as you bring, new dealers on, there's fewer and fewer companies out there that they're using that are going to require a check. So it's probably becoming a smaller and smaller amount that it's even an issue for.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's good. So I did want to circle back around on, you hit on it a little bit, but I wanted to dive a little deeper on check fraud and ACH fraud. We talked a lot about, and you kind of walked through the processes that are in place in a dealership to make sure things are approved, or, maybe if it's labor, it needs approval by this person. If it's parts, it needs approval by this person. So there's all these different processes, right? And every process, I don't care what business you're in, but certainly in a dealership world, every process is in place because something bad happened at some point, right? So when we think about that, you mentioned whitewashing checks, but maybe just a few examples. So, and I'll share one to start because it's stuck with me since I heard it. I was talking with a controller of a large dealer group, and she was telling me about, and it was in a little bit different context, but she was telling me this story about how when they were consolidating their business offices into regional locations, they were going through essentially all their boxes of check stock, right? And they had quite literally boxes on boxes of check stock that they would order from the bank. They put it in the printer, right? And they print it out and send their payables out. And when they were going through them, they found a box that literally had zero check stock in it and had rocks in it to make it feel like it had that weight.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so like these things actually happen, right? And when you have printed checks and check stock laying around, to your point, that's money. You fill it out and it's money. Maybe you catch it, maybe you don't. Maybe you have positive pay, so maybe the bank catches it, maybe they don't. But this idea of fraud, it can come at you from so many different angles, which is terrifying. But I don't know if you have any other ways. You mentioned whitewashing, and then kind of that check stock sitting around. But there's so many other opportunities for fraudulent activity to happen when you're dealing with paper.
Yeah, I mean, most definitely. I mean, I will say, so we have an entire fraud department. They sit in our Richmond, Virginia office. They are a strong team, and their job is to catch the fraud, not only on just check payments, but on ACHs and on virtual cards. And so I think it kind of depends on which form of payment is the method that a fraudster could frankly take it over. And so you talked about checks, we've talked about that part. ACHs is the biggest, most fraudulent gap, and it's just because of timing, right? So I think about just the amount of hours every day that you're busy and the amount of hours that we multitask, frankly, to get it all done. And we're humans. Not every human is perfect. We are not machines. And so there is not a time where I've accidentally clicked on a phishing email by accident because I'm just moving too fast. It wasn't intentional, but I just am getting through my day-to-day multitasking and oops, I clicked on it. And so it's really simple for somebody to have business email compromise that pretends like they're your supplier. And especially if you're under the gun for a payment. Like I've got a $100,000 payment that's due to a supplier. It's my top supplier, they're local, they're friends with my owner, right? And somebody's calling me saying, "Hey, Kat, you got to get this payment out. It was due last Friday. I haven't seen it. I don't have it. I need you to send it, but can you change the address you're sending it to? Or here's the ACH banking information. I need you to send it. Don't send it to the one you've got. We've changed. And I'm just moving fast because I'm a little nervous that my
Sure.
owner needs this payment out and I might not get it out on time. And so sure enough, I make that payment. And then I realize a week later when that supplier says, we didn't get your payment yet. But she called me and I did send it. And you realize, oh no, that was a complete mistake. That wasn't them. They were impostering with that supplier, and I just sent out the wrong payment amount, the wrong type to the wrong person. And so it's just simple things that can happen very unintentionally just because we're humans. And
Sure.
so I think why that part is so important is because we often think about payment execution, right? It's very easy for me to cut a check. It's easy for me to send an ACH. But to actually mitigate that fraud risk, make sure I've got all the controls in place, sending out the payment in the way it truly should have gone out, and then following up on that payment to make sure positive pay. Did positive pay catch a whitewash check? Did my supplier cash that virtual card? Or do I need to follow up with them to make sure that they process it? So I think it's just, there's a lot that goes into payments, and when it's not automated or there's not controls in place to help you mitigate that risk, it just opens you up for not a matter of if, just a matter of when.
Yeah. Could you go into some detail as you're kind of talking through this? I'm realizing I don't think I have a great understanding of the difference between an electronic kind of ACH payment and a virtual card. Like how did those differ? So if I use a virtual card, why am I not exposed to as much risk for fraud as I am with ACH?
Great question. So when an ACH is out of my account, it's gone. I can't pull it back. It has left the building, it has left my account, and the ability for us or the federal government to get those funds back is very, very slim. So that's one big part to it. Okay. And then virtual cards it's a single-use card number. So this is where I get a little bit dorky on payments is I can send a single-use card number and I can on my remittance list out the invoices that I'm going to pay. So it might be 3 or 4 invoices, total amount, and I can give it an expiration date. And so that one single-use card number, once it has been keyed in and that supplier has processed it, it's dead. It's no more. It's not floating out there again. Or if they overcharge it. So let's say it's $100,000 single-use virtual card, but they try to spend $100,001. It will decline. It won't let them charge over that amount. So that's one way, is that it's just very secure and very specific in the timing and the amount. And then the second piece I would say is much like any credit card, I've had fraud on a credit card before. Sure. I don't know if you have. I'm sure you have before. But fraud on a credit card allows you to actually go back and tell your credit card processor, this is a fraudulent charge. I actually didn't make this. And so you can open up a dispute. So very similar, you can do that on a virtual card. And so you've got that barrier of protection with MasterCard specifically that allows you to have that barrier of fraud protection before that virtual card is even cashed.
Okay. So in theory, I just want to make sure I understand it. So in theory, you're still in some ways susceptible to that same scenario that you talked about, where somebody could, you could be subject to business email compromise, and you could click a link to go make a payment to something that you believe is a valid vendor. You make that payment, but you do it via virtual card, and basically it's a layer of protection for you. So even if you are subjected to fraud, you aren't necessarily, it's not like you paid cash, right? You got it. It's like paying with a credit card where you can dispute it, and you ultimately, if it was fraud, are not going to be put out by whatever that amount was.
Yes, you said that very well, very clean.
Okay. All right. Well, I got smarter today, and that's always the goal. So I appreciate that. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Catherine, if you don't mind. And you said Kat earlier. Do you prefer to go by Kat? I'm sorry. See, we didn't even know each other. So
I know, it's so funny. So many people call me Kat. They'll shorten it to Kat, but Kat or Catherine is completely appropriate. I will answer to both.
okay, all right. Well, let's talk about a little bit the workflow of payments inside of a dealership and maybe the different ways that can happen even in a digital world, because there's ways to pay digitally, whether that's through your bank, right, or potentially through a third party tool, right, that you're using for payments. With Reynolds, we have an offering where you can pay it right through the DMS, right? So it's all embedded. Maybe talk a little bit about those different ways, and I might be missing some too, so fill in any blanks, but where some of those differences lie and maybe strengths and weaknesses in any of those processes.
Yeah, I mean, I think the great thing is the invoice approval process doesn't change today. And so when you're partnering with Corpay, we're really just handling the payment execution and the payment servicing. So invoice approvals happens the same way that it does in Reynolds today. But where payments come in is where most people want greater checks and balances, because I can approve an invoice, but if I've got a batch payment of $500,000 going out the door on Friday, I need to make sure I've got cash flow to be able to
Mm-hmm.
support that payment. And maybe I want to be more strategic about when I release it because of that. And B, I want to make sure like I'm ready to pay these invoices. It's gone through all of the checks that it should go through with approvals, and I'm ready to pay these because they are legitimate. And so I think that's where digitizing approvals really come into play. Is an approver can go in electronically and see all of those batches of payments. So that batch payment run of 500,000, for example, I can see all the invoices that those make up. I can hover over and see the actual invoice image and see what my accounting team has already put those approvals in place. And so it makes it simpler to execute and make sure, okay, I feel good about this 500,000 going out the door. And so I think that's a big part of digital approvals is I got a batch. I might not be ready yet, so maybe I'm holding it for cash flow, or maybe I'm not ready to pay two of those invoices that were prepped for payment, and there's 100 in there. So I can decline those two, yet still pay the whole rest of the batch. So I think it just gives you better visibility, better efficiency, and just make sure payments are going out when you want them to.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Do you see? I don't know, when we think about the business office and the amount of work that goes into really everything in the office. I mean, those, the people that are running a business office, there's a lot of just work that has to be done to keep a dealership moving forward, right? And every function is extremely important. You got to sell cars, you got to service vehicles, but that business office keeps kind of the wheels turning. And when you see people move to an electronic payment process, we've talked about, risk mitigation with fraud. We've talked about a bunch of different things. Does it help speed people up? Like, does it make people more efficient? Are there efficiency gains that typically dealerships will see as well?
I mean, absolutely. I think as with anything. So I'm gonna tell a little like personal story, and then
Okay.
I'll wrap this back around to why it helps dealerships. But I mentioned to you earlier that we all have the same amount of time in the day, yet we all seem to lack this infinite number of white space. And so even me personally, there's things that I could do on my own, yet I choose for somebody else to do it because they're better at it, they're faster at it, they're more efficient, and frankly, it's all they do all day. So for me, it's lawn service, right? I am absolutely, and I have a lawnmower. I can lawn, I can mow, I can edge, I can weed whack, I can blow, I can do all of that. But my lawn crew does it in 20 minutes. It takes me an hour and a half. And
Sure.
so it's not that I can't do it, it's just that they do it better and faster. And what does that allow me to do? Whatever I want, like to prioritize. It might be spending time with my family, or maybe if I'm at work, it makes me focus on more prioritized tasks that are proactive instead of reactive. So I think that's the point of making that business office more efficient. Is there is always more work that can be done. We just
Yeah.
lack the time in the day to do it. I don't think I've ever walked into a business office that doesn't have piles of paper, ever,
Yeah.
ever. what if those piles were less? Or what if we could do better forecasting or better cash flow management, or focus our time on accounts receivable because maybe we need help on the receiving end? And so I think there's never a list of things not to do when you allow people to have more time in their day. There's always more that we can be doing. And so just a little example, in my opinion, of why we choose other companies to do things for us is we just need the help. It's more efficient.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. Well, Catherine, what, I want to be obviously respectful of your time. What haven't we talked about that we should? What questions didn't I ask that I should have while we were chatting?
Goodness. I don't know that there is any, actually.
Okay.
I feel like we covered them all. I feel like I
Yeah.
should have some questions that we didn't cover, but I think we hit them all.
No, it was a great conversation. I appreciate you taking time. It's such an interesting world. Like we said when we kind of started, there's a lot of nuance, there's a lot of detail, and it goes way deeper than just stroking a check, right? There's so much that goes into it, and so many ways you can handle it. It's an important part of the business that maybe doesn't get a lot of focus because we just do it. So taking a step back and thinking through what are the alternatives can be really impactful. So I appreciate you hopping on and sharing and giving your perspective today.
Absolutely. Thank you for the time.
Yep. Thank you. And hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Sounds great.
Well, a big thank you to Catherine Hart, Senior Vice President of Sales for Payment Automation at Corpay. I really enjoyed that conversation. She did a great job describing the differences between a manual process and a digital process and the pros and the cons. So I hope you got something out of it. I definitely learned something. Before we hop off, don't forget you can watch or listen to all episodes of Connected on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify podcasts. And make sure to hit subscribe so you're notified every other week when new episodes are released. Thanks so much, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.